Hi, and welcome to Scottish Summit 2021. My name is Mariano Gomez Bent, and today I will be introducing to you Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents, a match made in heaven. I first want to thank our sponsors, ScriptRunner, DQ Global, Proximo 3, Redspire, Agilicis, and Hitachi Solutions for supporting this great event. But of course, this wouldn't be possible without the efforts of our organizers. So a big round of applause for them, and make sure you actually fill out your evals and provide feedback about the event. For today, I will be actually talking about a little bit about myself, not too much, but mainly explaining why we're here today. I'll also be showing you how to create a chatbot, how to create a workflow, build additional topics and workflows from existing ones, and publishing your chatbot. Finally, I will open the mics for some questions and answers and closing remarks. So once again, my name is Mariano Gomez. I'm a Chief Technology Officer at McCorma Incorporated here in the United States. I've been a Microsoft MVP since 2008, been working for 25 years in the Dynamics channel. I'm originally from a tiny island in the Caribbean by the name of San Andres, which belongs to Colombia, and I currently live in Roswell, Georgia, United States with my family. You can always find me at DGP Blogster on Twitter, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/mgomezb1. To ease into the topic, here I have Microsoft Dynamics GP, which is my ERP system. And traditionally, if I wanted to go to inquiry a customer balance, I would have to click on sales, inquiry over here, transactions by customer, specifically retrieve this customer information, and just start doing all sort of things in this ERP system just to get a balance from a customer. Likewise, if I were to try and look at this customer summary, and if I were to just choose Aaron Fitz Electrical, this is my customer here, and hit calculate, I could also retrieve the customer balance through the mechanisms provided by the application. Now, that is all nice and good, but if I'm an end user, that seems sometimes like too many clicks. And the whole proposition of this session is that you can actually optimize the way you deal with ERP systems, so much internally as it is external, with the use of Power Automate and certainly with the use of Power Virtual Agents. So what if we could provide the same experience by using a bot inside our ERP system? So here's my bot, the name is Crystal. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to query Crystal for the information for that specific customer. So I might start with a greeting topic, or just by greeting the bot. And as you can tell, this bot is capable of currently providing information on customer, vendor account information, orders, store information, etc. But initially, I'm actually asked what I want to do initially with this particular bot. In this case, I want to show the customer balance. So for customer, I'm going to use Aaron Fit 001 and hit enter. And the bot will then now infer on that particular customer and come back with the balance. So as you can see, the balance is 24,272.06. Now, if I say this answers my question, and I'm then immediately go back or take into a survey where I can rate my particular experience as an end user. If the bot will then tell me if I want to be helped with something else, I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. And I can even type in what I want. So let's say I want get vendor balance. Now, as you can see, this bot is actually asking me about a specific vendor to query this information. So I could basically go ahead and say, this would be for Ace Travel 001. And the bot will perform the same operation, go and retrieve that vendor balance. And I can say then that this answered my question. Then again, go back to a rating experience, and I can finally say no thank you to finalize my experience and interaction with this bot. So instead of navigating multiple menus and multiple options and having to remember where those are as an end user that only deals with one or two aspects within my ERP, I can actually enable a chatbot experience for an end user that is looking to obtain better interactions with my enterprise resource planning system. Okay, so now we're going to see how we built this chatbot and how we created this experience for the end user. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go over here to Power Apps, and from Power Apps I can actually set up different things like my chatbot and my solutions and certainly my workflows. So I find it a very convenient way of getting to the different things that I want to work on. The second thing you want to make sure is that you're in the proper environment. So I've set up a Scottish Summit environment, which I'm using for this particular session. Third thing is I want to actually go to Solutions and set up a new solution. And if you're asking yourself why I'm going through this, it's because as a best practice, I always group every single project that I have into solutions so I can leverage the capabilities of Azure DevOps or even GitHub if I have a DevOps strategy in place. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to enter a display name for this particular solution. This is going to be Scottish Summit 2021. And I'm going to select a publisher. Now remember, you have the default publishers, but you can also set up your own. I already created a publisher, so I'm just going to select Scottish Publisher here. But if I try to edit this publisher, you will see that it allows me to define very specific information regarding my organization, contact information, address, etc. that can be used if I'm deciding to publish my solution to things like the App Store. So I'm just going to save and close this. I'm going to click Done here, and I'm going to finalize the solution that I created. Now you can add version information for this solution, but since this is my first bot with this one, I'm just going to leave it at version 1. And then I'm going to click the Create button here. Now I'm going to create a new chatbot, and for that I'm going to go to Chatbots here and click on Create. This is going to be a basic conversational chatbot, so that's going to take me effectively to Power Virtual Agents, where I'm going to be able to configure my chatbot. So for all intents and purposes, this new chatbot is going to be called Andrea, and it's going to be using the English language to interact with the end user. The next thing that we're going to select here is the environment. Now, if you click here, you have the ability to set up a new environment. You can choose from the different environments that you have created in your system. So I'm just going to have my Scottish Summit environment, and I'm going to click Create here. Now, this process of creation then leverages the entire Azure bot framework to set up this particular bot, and we will wait for it to complete. Once the chatbot has been provisioned, first thing I want to do is customize my greeting. Now, if you remember when I started interacting with Crystal had a very specific messaging that was familiar to end users within my organization. In order to do that, I can actually customize this and say, hi, I am Crystal, or in this case, Andrea, your accounting virtual agent. I can help you with account questions, orders, store information, and more. Now, to make it a little bit more specific, I can say, I can help you with customer and vendor account questions, orders, store information, and more. So now you're starting to customize your bot based on the requirements from your organization. So now, because this is a question, what I want to do is I want to provide options for the user to select from. So I'm going to add a new question. In this particular case, I'm going to paste back the question that I was asking initially. Now, what am I going to ask the user to identify? You can ask them to identify many things within the list of information choices that are available. You can provide multiple choice options. You can provide the user's entire response, which is a way of saying, just get back what the user types on the keyboard. You can format your response as age, Boolean, city, color, and any number of pre-built options that are available from Microsoft. In this case, I want a multiple choice option because I'm going to actually ask the user to enter the customer balance and also the vendor balance. Now, keep in mind here that I could have actually left the question as is, but what I want to show here is the ability then to interact with variables. So I can say this is var options, and basically what that does is the user selection then become stored in this variable called var options. And I can then see that as I create these options, Power Virtual Agents automatically add the branch conditions for the selection that the user is going to be presented with. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this topic for now because that completes my greeting. And initially, I can test this to make sure that I'm on the right track. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to say hi to initiate the bot interaction. And as you can see now, my options are selected. But because these go nowhere, if I were to choose one of these options, then most likely I would get an error as a result. So what we're going to do here then is save this bot. And I'm going to go back to Power Apps initially and go to Solutions. And as you can see, this is my Scottish 2021 Summit solution. And from here, I can add an existing chatbot to the list of chatbots that are already there. Since I'm working on Andrea, I'm going to click and select Add. And now you can see that both the bot itself and all the topics are now added to this particular solution. So if I were to do DevOps now, all this can be created and stored in a source code control repository. Very cool. Going back over here to Andrea, the first thing I'm going to show you to do is how to create your own topic. And I'm going to click here on Topics, and I'm going to set up a new topic called, in this case, Customer Balance. I'm going to enter the same friendly name. By the way, that was added as of recent. I can then define a description for this, which is obtain customer balances from Microsoft Dynamics GP. Now I can enter a trigger phrase. So trigger phrases can be get my customer balance. Or what if I say get my debtor balance? Or show me my customer balance. Or show me my debtor balance. Or I can say show me customer info. Okay, so many things I can add to this trigger phrase, or to the list of trigger phrases, but keep in mind that the more you provide as input, the better your bot will respond to the end user. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this topic, and I'm going to go then to the authoring canvas, where you can see now that this particular topic is ready for additional development. Now, what we want to do then is we want to prompt the user for a question where they're going to be able to enter the customer ID that they're going to be inquiring. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this message and I'm going to add a question. And this particular question will be the entire user response as a result, because what I want is I want to store the information that's captured from the keyboard. And then I'm going to present this as which customer would you like to inquiry? Okay. So that entire response, I'm going to store it in a variable called var customer ID. And let's go ahead and save this information and close this pane. We will add a new step to our virtual agent here, and that's going to be to call an action. The action that we want to call is effectively to create a new flow. That flow is going to take the var customer ID variable and consume it to retrieve the customer balance from our ERP system. So I'm just gonna go ahead here and create flow. That's gonna open Power Automate. And as a good practice, the first thing you do is always rename your flow. And this one is gonna be called Cottage Summit Customer Balance. And the input for this particular flow for the trigger step is going to be customer ID. So this is the customer ID that we're passing in from the virtual agent. We're going to proceed to other step. And that particular action is going to be based on SQL Server, or it's going to leverage the SQL Server connector. Now keep in mind that the SQL Server connector is a premium connector. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the get rows action to retrieve information from my SQL Server and from this database, and in particular from the RM00103 table, which contains my customer balance information. Okay, so here it is. If you need to set up a new connection to a database, use the ellipsis button and click on New Connection Reference. Now also keep in mind that if you're accessing an on-premise SQL Server, you must have the on-premises data gateway enabled in order to be able to access your local resources. Now we need to actually add a filter to this table in order to be able to retrieve the customer balance itself. So we actually want to do this where the customer number in the customer balance table is equal to the actual customer ID that was passed in from the Power Virtual Agents topic. So in this case, we're going to do customer number equals customer ID. Now that might have a couple results to contend with. Either we find the customer number or not. In any case, what we want to do then is we want to add an action to then first get because the result set from this action is returned as a table, we need to return just the first row that matches that criteria, customer number equals customer ID. So we're gonna add a compose action here, and that compose action is gonna be a data operation, and we're gonna make this return the first row. So we're just gonna get first row here as our action name. And then what we're gonna do here is we're gonna then go to expressions, and we're gonna type in the function first, and we're gonna actually use the value, from the list of items that is returned as a parameter. You can see that the function is returning the first of the value of the output. The next thing that we need to do then is add another action, and that action is going to then from the first row return the customer balance value. So what we want to do is we want to select here again compose action, and that compose action then is going to use the outputs function, and the outputs function then we're going to pass in the value from the first row, get first row. Actually, I shouldn't have done this. All we need is this. And we're going to return the customer balance column from that result set. So here we are. We got to click OK here now. And if we hover over that, that's kind of what we're returning. So this we can rename to get customer balance. So just get balance. Now, as I said before, the balance can be a result of finding the customer or not finding the customer. If we find the customer, then the balance will have a value. If we don't find the customer, the balance will probably be null. So what we want to do is we want to set up a variable that will allow to be a placeholder, and we're just going to initialize that variable, and we're going to call it customer balance for now. That's going to be my action name, and that's going to be referring to the value of the variable customer balance. I typically do this as a best practice, And it allows me to know that if I see a value here, a variable name or an action name for a variable that is referring to this particular variable that we're talking about here. And I'm going to initialize this as a string, and you'll see why in a second. Then because we said that the action or the result set can be null or it can be a value, we need to then add a condition to check for that. And that condition is going to be evaluating the get balance from the specific column and whether that value is equal to null. So we're going to look up the expression and we're just going to get the null operator from there. Next thing we're going to do here, if it's equal to null, we're going to do something very interesting. We're just going to set the variable that we have, which is the customer balance variable. Okay, we're going to set that variable to not available. All right, that's pretty simple, and there's a reason for that. We want to pass back an effective value to Power Virtual Agent. And then in this case, in the case of no, then what we're going to do is we're going to apply some number formatting. We're going to then format the output that we get from the balance to add a $sign to it. Okay. Now we can make this invariant language, invariant country, and because I don't want to do anything else, that's probably what I'll do here. And the next thing that we're going to do then is set the variable to our formatted output. So in this case, customer balance will be the result set from the formatted number. Okay. Now you can go ahead and say, just rename this to customer not found, right? And then rename this one to format customer balance. All right. So now you have both steps properly named. And then here in the return set, what we're going to do is we're going to add an output, and that's going to be a text. And that output is going to be our PBA customer balance field, which I'm going to make equal to the customer balance variable that is here. That's perfect. Now we can save this. Now, if we return to Power Apps, we can then go ahead and add the flow that we just completed as a member of this particular solution. So now I have both the chatbot, I have the flow, and I have all the topics that I've created being a part of this particular solution. And that's kind of what we want to do. We want to make sure that everything that we create is packaged in one place and it's able to be utilized in a very compact manner if I need it for other purposes. Back here in Power Virtual Agents, what we will do then is we will add the call and action and make sure that everything is in line. So now you can see that this customer ID here is then point to the variable customer ID. That's how I'm passing that parameter into my Power Automate flow. And then I'm getting PBA customer balance in return. Perfect. Now I am a little paranoid sometimes, so I keep saving at different points. That's something that you can implement as a practice of yours or not. But what I want to do then is I want to evaluate the result of that customer balance. And remember, we can add a condition here. And we can say if the PBA customer balance is equal to NA, then we can always say or provide a message that says customer balance, or we can then pass in the variable customer ID not found. So customer ID not found. And then on the other side, if I get a balance back, I can say something like customer var customer ID balance is, and then I can point to the PBA customer balance result set. Now I'm not done here. If the customer that it was not found, maybe I want to actually have the user retry or start over. So we can then go back here and tell the user or select from the list of topics a start over topic. Now, if the customer balance was found, what I probably want to do then is end with a survey. So I'm going to hit save. And what I can do then is go back to topics. This is still saving, so we gotta let that finish. We're gonna go back to topics and go to the greeting. And we're then gonna wanna link up here in our topic canvas. We're gonna then wanna link up this variable to go to another topic and select the customer balance one that we just did here. So now we can save this. And the way to test this is we can actually test it directly here from the bot. And we're gonna be able to then say hi, and that bot should then start replying. We're gonna get the customer balance. Which customer would you like to inquiry? We're gonna try Aaron Fit 001 and just hit go and see if that bot returns something here. So in this case, I have an error in this topic. So let's go back and go to the topics and check the customer balance topic or topics. I actually selected the wrong one, customer balance. And we can see here what happened. So we're gonna go to the authoring canvas. And what we wanna do then is we wanna make sure that this topic completed successfully. So we can start from get customer balance. So if I enter that and type in Aaron Fit 001 and click this, we can see what happened here. So something happens with the flow. So what we gotta do is go to view flow details. And we can take the runs and see what happens. So here's a run that failed. And we'll see exactly what failed in this particular case. So it's telling me that there's an unterminated string literal on position 25, custom number equals Aaron Fit. So suppose that's here. And what we want to do then is we want to go back and see what the input was. And we can see something did not happen correctly. In this case, it seems like we have an unterminated string on Aaron Fit 001. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close this and edit my flow a little bit. And I'm going to go back to get rows and expand this. And I can see that I have that unterminated single quote. So I'm going to add that single quote, step outside, and just hit save to complete. Okay, now that my topic is being saved, I can then go ahead and test this again. So we can do get customer balance. And the customer that we want to try out is Aaron Fit 001 and see now if our flow effectively retrieves the balance. So voila, we have the balance for the customer. And we can say that answered our question. And we can rate this particular one. So now that we have a full completed topic, let's see how we get all the other aspects of the topic for the vendor balance and the vendor flow completed as well. To conclude this section, what we will do then is we will go back to topics and we will take this particular topic and make a copy of it. So currently the topic is being copied. So that's the customer balance copy. And we're going to turn this one into a vendor balance topic. So what we want to do here is we want to go ahead and open this particular topic and change customer to vendor, remove this copy aspect of it, change the friendly name from customer to vendor, remove the copy aspect of it as well. And then we're going to rename this to obtain vendor balances from Microsoft Dynamics GP. So the beauty here is we can go ahead and edit each one of these trigger phrases to show me vendor info, for example, or show me creditor balance, or show me vendor balance, or show me creditor balance, or get my vendor balance. Now, once we have this, we can go ahead and save this topic and go to the authoring canvas. Note that here we have a few things. For example, I don't want this to say which customer would I like to inquiry, but I want it to say which vendor would you like to inquiry, and change the response to the var vendor ID option here. And then in the action, we can change the actual flow or remove this action altogether and call a new one. But we don't have that flow in place yet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the customer balance flow. So this is SS customer balance, and we're going to edit this. Once we edit it, we can go back one and then do a save as here and change this to SS vendor balance and save this. Now, once we have our flow created, we can go back to my flows, and here's SS vendor balance. So the first thing we're going to do is edit that. And likewise, what we want to do here is instead of customer ID, we're going to pass in the vendor ID. In the get rows, we're no longer going to retrieve this from the RM00103 table, but rather from the PM, which is for payables management, 00201 table. That's our vendor balance here. And what we want to do is we want to then expand this, and instead of the customer number, we're going to ask for the vendor ID equals, in this case, vendor ID, which is what we just passed in here. So some of these things are inherited, which is really good. So we don't have to go back and edit anything. And here in the expression, what we're going to do is we're going to still retrieve the first row. So that's perfect. Then in the compose, we're going to get not the vendor balance, but as this expression would have it, we're getting the outputs, and we're going to get it from the get first row. And then we're going to select, I believe that field is called the current balance field. Okay, so we're going to click OK here. It says we still have something that is invalid. So we're just going to figure out what that is. I'm going to make sure everything is tidy here. Outputs, gets first row, current balance. I think we're missing a single quote here. So that's it. Let's go ahead and do that. Now we can rename this to vendor balance and effectively change the variable in the edit. Okay. So as far as conditions go, we can then change the output, and we're gonna rename this again to vendor not found. And that should have actually taken effect and allow us to select the vendor balance here. If not, we're formatting the output and we pass in this to the format vendor balance, and we're selecting the vendor balance variable here. Likewise, in the return option, instead of PVA customer balance, we're going to have PVA vendor balance. And then we're going to remove this and add the vendor balance as dynamic content. Now, I believe that's all we need to do. So that was pretty quick. We made all the changes necessary to support this new flow without necessarily having to change everything that we had. So that's good. We can save this. And one thing I will do is once it's saved, I'm going to go back here to Power Apps, hit done here. I'm going to add an existing cloud flow and make sure that get vendor balance outside of the solution, that vendor balance is added to it. So that's great. Now we have the vendor balance being added as part of our set of flows. Now, additionally to this, what we're going to do is in Power Virtual Agents, here in the topic, we're going to remove a few set of options that are here. So this is the vendor ID, and I'm going to go and select or remove every single one of these actions or steps to then accommodate for the new flow that I just created or I just replicated. So we're going to start from here. And what we're going to do is we're going to add or call that action that created that new flow. So here's our SS vendor balance. So that's going to be our variable vendor ID. And equally, that's going to output the PVA vendor balance ID or variable from the flow itself. So now if we go and expand this action, we can then go back and add a condition. And remember that our condition is evaluating the value or the result of PA vendor balance. In this case, if PA vendor balance is equal to not applicable or not available, what we'll do is then we'll show a message that says vendor, in this case, vendor ID does not exist or not found. And then we can actually tell the user to start over. Okay. And in this particular case, if one was found, we're going to show a message that says something like vendor ID balance is, and then display the balance. Then we can take this to end the conversation and end with a survey. Once again, we can save this topic, go to our topics in general. Well, let's wait till it finishes and go to our topics in general. And as you can see, the status of this particular one is off. So we're going to turn this on. Now, one thing about the vendor balance Power Automate as well, or the flow, is off as well. So we probably want to turn this one on. The flow checker says we might have some problems, so we're just going to run that just to make sure we don't have any warnings, anything on. So this is good to go. And we finally can then go back to Power Virtual Agents and test our vendor balance topic. So to do that, all I got to do here is type get vendor balance. And that will initiate that topic. So we're just going to enter Ace Trouble 001 and run that particular flow, that particular custom vendor. So as you can see, there is a balance for that vendor. And we can say that that answers the survey, answers the question, and complete with this survey, and we're done. So to summarize, what we did was a few things. The first thing I want to call your attention to is obviously use solutions whenever possible to group all the topics, flows, and chatbots that your solution entails. And the second thing is make sure that you leverage where you can different elements that you've created in order to save time when building an enterprise solution for your company or even for a customer of yours. As you can see, Power Virtual Agents is pretty solid in terms of the functionality it delivers and the ease which you can leverage these solutions. It provides a very well-defined foundation where you can start already building chatbots. So don't be afraid and go out there and start doing things. Finally, what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and publish my bot. And publishing this bot then will make it effectively available for usage or for consumption. The next thing you want to do here is once you go to manage, you can take a look at the channels. And if you were to publish this to a custom website or a demo website, you would have the actual URL of the bot that you're delivering. So keep in mind here now that this is my particular bot endpoint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this and I'm going to open my File Explorer, move this over here so you can see it. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go to my C drive where my Dynamics GP application is stored. I'm going to the data folder where I can find this dex.ini file, which contains the different settings that I pass to the application. So here all I'm going to do is replace the Crystal bot endpoint for the Andrea bot endpoint, and I'm going to hit save here. So once I've saved this, I can always go back and check my application. So I'm going to go to home here. And now notice that Andrea is actually loaded and I can do the same functions. So I can say get customer balance. And that's going to initiate the bot. So if I type in Aaron Fit 001, that's going to effectively retrieve the balance for Aaron Fit. A couple other things, if you actually open another browser tab here and paste that endpoint, this will effectively launch your bot in the browser. So I can also go back and say get vendor balance. And finally, you can see the bot is inquiring what vendor balance I need. So I'm going to enter Ace Travel 001, and effectively I will get back a balance for Ace Travel. So this basically concludes my session. It shows you the versatility of Power Virtual Agents with Power Automate and show you how you can deploy it in various different channels, including perhaps a grown ERP or an established ERP system, or even something that you've created, a web page, a website, a web application, and basically take advantage of all the data that is available enterprise-wide. Please feel free now to ask me any questions you want. I'm going to put up my contact information so you can have it available. And by all means, feel free to contact me.